So today we're talking about a very interesting topic. We're talking about time management, right? Now, time management is historically something that many people struggle with for various different reasons. I know this, I understand this. This is something that I work with many of my clients around, is the dreaded time management. How do we manage our time? How do we gain more time? How do we maximize our time? What tools, what techniques, what mindset can we apply in order to generate more valuable time? There are some things that you can do to manage your time like a coaching master. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to learn how to manage time like a coaching master, okay? Because this is something that many people struggle with, but it's something I want to help remedy as of today. This is something that a lot of people struggle with. And the reason as to why I'm passionate about this is I struggled with time management for so many years, to the point, right? And I'm going to be very open and honest about this, that not that long after quitting my job to become a coach, I nearly quit my coaching business to go back to being in a job. And that was because I wasn't managing my time effectively. I felt as though I was doing absolutely everything I could, working every single hour I was given to build this coaching business. And the first few months, it was a real struggle. It was really tough, and I wasn't making very good progress. And it's only now that I look back and I realize the pitfalls that I had fallen into. I realize now all of the steps that I was taking that wasn't getting me anywhere. And I can now see all of the steps that I was ignoring that really would have helped me. And a lot of it boils down to the way in which I was managing my time. Long story short, I wasn't managing my time. I thought I was, because I had my alarm set at 5 o'clock in the morning every morning, and I was going to get up super early, and I had a huge to-do list of things to do. I thought, I'm managing my time because I'm having early mornings and I've just got all of these tasks that I must go tick. And if I can tick off as many tasks as I can within the space of one day, then surely I will make excellent progress with my business. And it doesn't work that way. It is not a case of just trying to do as much as you can in the shortest amount of time, right? It's not about that. It's not about just trying to cram your diary with constant tasks and constant missions and constant meetings and going places and seeing people and doing things. It's not about maximizing your time in the way that you're giving yourself more and more to do. It's about being very smart with your time and focusing on priorities. Now, there is a way of doing this. We're going to go through a process today which will allow you to manage those tasks. Because there's one thing that I want to start with here, and that is that time management is really task management. Time management does not really exist if it wasn't for task management. Because if we can manage the tasks in which we have in front of us, then managing the time it takes to do the tasks is never a problem. It's not a problem. So what we need to try to do is we need to try to remove our mindset and move it away from how can I manage my time to how can I manage my task. Because if we can find a way of managing our tasks, we no longer need the 5 a.m. wake up calls. We no longer need to be working until 11 p.m. or midnight or 1 a.m. and then getting up at 5 o'clock the next day. Honestly, guys, when I first started my coaching business, I was up at 5 every day and I was getting into bed at midnight, and I was working every single hour in between, thinking I was being productive and thinking that surely that would help me grow my business. And it was not the case. And we're going to go through why in a moment. Now, there are some very negative effects of poor time/task management. It can really poorly affect your workflow. And I'm sure that we've all experienced this. When we're having difficulty juggling our time and juggling the tasks that we've got, the actual ability that we have to get into flow. And when you're in flow, you're effortlessly working on the priorities, and you feel in flow and you feel good and you feel like you have this fluidity, and it's almost like you can juggle 15 things at once because you're an octopus and nothing is a problem. You're like, boom, 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 boom. There you go. I've just finished this. I've just called that person. I've just filled out this form. I've just cooked the kids dinner. I've just got them to bed. Now I've just finished this and I feel great and I feel like I'm making progress. It's almost impossible to get into that kind of flow when we are not managing our tasks and our time effectively. It's a vicious cycle. It's like what poor workflow means that we manage our time even worse, and poor time management means that we have an even worse workflow. So that is just a vicious cycle that happens, and it goes round and round and round and round. So if we can manage our tasks in an appropriate way, which by the end of this power hour, you will know exactly what you need to do that, then you have an increased opportunity to get into a good workflow where you feel like you are on top of the world and you know what you need to do and you know when you need to do it and you know how it's going to be done and you feel good about it. Okay, we're going to get to that stage. Another detrimental element of poor time management is wasted time. I'm very, very consciously aware of time being the most valuable asset we have. I'm very aware of that, and I feel like I've been aware of that for a long time. Who here has ever looked back and felt nostalgic about a time in their past or about a time in their life? And there's been an element where you think, I'd love to go back there because I would like to do something differently, or I'd like to experience that again because I didn't really appreciate it. Or I would like to go back because I miss it. And there were things that I wish that I could have done, and there were people that I wish I could have seen, and there are places I wish I could have gone. Now, that sense of nostalgia, that can be sometimes quite pleasant when you look back on a part of your past and you think, yes, that was really good. I liked that. That was a great time in my life. I maximized it. But all too often, what we really experience is we start to experience that slight sense of regret. And that regret can range from a slight sense to a really devastating, overwhelming sense of regret because we've wasted the time, or we feel like we've wasted the time. Now, when we have really poor time management and task management, that can create that sense in a dramatic way, because it's not that unusual to sort of just be scraping by and clawing your way through these tasks and this time day by day by day. And you look back and you realize 10 years have passed and you think, my God, that's gone so quickly. What's happened to the time? I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be thinking this way or acting this way. I want to be maximizing the time I've got. And you cannot maximize the time you have until you can manage your tasks and your time. That's when you can maximize the time that you have, and you can create memories and moments that you are able to look back on with less regret, right? I feel like as human beings, there's always going to be like a sense of regret that we have. And my personal view on that is because we have so many options in terms of everything. Every day we make however many hundreds, maybe even thousands of decisions, whether we turn right or whether we turn left, whether we go there or whether we go here, whether we see that person or this person, whether I pursue this career or that career, whether I go to that country or this country. It could be anything from where you travel to who you phone that day. And every single time we have multiple options, whether we know it or not, we always have multiple options. Now, that's a good thing because more options are better than less options, but it can also create that sense of regret because naturally we have that little part in our brain where we think, well, what if? What if I turned right instead of turning left that day? What if I met that person instead of that person? What if I went to that country instead of that country? What if I phoned that person at 4 o'clock instead of 5 o'clock? Maybe that thing wouldn't have happened. There's constant decisions to make. Now, when we're really bad at managing our time, I feel that can create that sense of regret even more, right? It enhances the chances that we will have that sense of regret. Because what happens is we then look back on the time that we did have. And if we look back on that time feeling like we didn't manage the time very well, then it increases the chances of us regretting what we did do with the time that we had. And I don't know about you guys, but honestly, one of the biggest fears that I've got is being on my deathbed and looking back and being extremely disappointed with the way in which I chose to spend my time. And I don't want to look back and think, oh God, I had no time for enjoyment. I didn't pursue my dreams. I worked all hours of the day just to pay the bills and just to pay the mortgage. And all I was worried about was the stress at the time. And I was worried about the pitfalls at the time and the reason why I was down, instead of looking at the beauty of life that's in front of us. And I'm talking real beauty. Each and every one of us, we have things in our life that if they were taken away from us tomorrow, we would deeply, deeply regret that we didn't spend more time focusing on them, right? We have people in our life. We have things. We have places. We have all sorts of different elements of our life that we would be so regretful if we lost them tomorrow. And we would say, I really wish I gave that more love and time and attention. I really wish I wasn't so focused on how I'm going to fucking pay the bills that month and worrying about the fact that these things over here are not working out very well for me. And instead, I really wish I focused on these people and these places and these things that were always there and they always loved me. They were so great and now I've lost them and I want them back, right? I'm trying not to give too many specific examples because everybody will have their own version of what I'm talking about. So I'm doing that deliberately. I want you to fill in the blanks. But poor time management creates that. If we can manage our time in a lot more effective way, then we're able to look back and say, I really maximized that. That was really fantastic. I couldn't have done that any better. I really enjoyed that time and my focus and my clarity was so clear back then that I really saw the beauty in those moments and the beauty in those people and the beauty in that place where I was at. That can only really come if we know how to manage our time. So that's another thing that we're going to try to create and also avoid, right? There's also a loss of control. You felt as though your day is completely running away from you and there's nothing you can do about it. And you look at this never-ending list of things to do, and all of a sudden, 1 hour, 2 hours, 5 hours, 10 hours have just gone by like that. And you look at the clock and you think, how has it got to the end of the day? And I've made this much progress. I've made no progress. And I've lost that control. I've lost control over the day. That is something that happens with poor time management. And also, there is a poor level of quality that we create. Whether it's within our work, whether it's within our families, our relationships, our self-care, our diet, our exercise, our mindset, our style, anything like the time with pets, time for hobbies and interests, time for travel. There's a much lower quality that we bring to all of those things if we're not able to manage the time in which we have for them. So maybe we're able to pay a little bit of time and attention to those things, but we don't give them much love or time or attention or interest, and the quality that we bring to those elements of our life, that suffers as well. And of course, when it comes to business specifically, for all of those coaches watching this that are growing their coaching businesses, it can create a poor reputation for us. If we're not good at managing our time, managing our meetings, managing the time in which we're supposed to show up for people, then that's a little side one, but it can have an effect. But what are some of the advantages of managing your time effectively? What are some of the advantages? It's a big, big, big stress reliever. Now, stress is a fucking killer. And I'm not just talking about that metaphorically, like it will literally kill you. That thing will kill you. And not only will it kill you in the most regretful way. Because I can guarantee you the things that we're stressed about today will not demand the same level of attention in a year's time. So if we're dying for something, if we're literally killing ourselves inside for something that matters today and won't matter tomorrow or the next day or in a year's time, then it's wasted, pointless. So we want to reduce that stress. We want to reduce the stress that we feel, the stress and the anxiety that we feel. And we can do that with really good time management, right? Also, it gives us more time to play with naturally. the most valuable commodity in the world. We want more time because we've got a set amount. And once it's up, it's up. You're never getting it back. So if we can try to claw some back whilst we're on this planet, let's try to do that. It will provide you with more opportunities as well, because you'll have more time for opportunities. You'll have more clarity. Your mind will be clearer. You won't be so bogged down with the amount of bullshit that you've got going on and the constant, endless to-do list. I'm sick and tired of the constant, endless to-do lists, and I found a way out of them, which I'm going to teach you today. Are you sick of the constant, endless to-do lists? Are they bogging you down? Are they stressing you out? And does it always feel like you can never reach the end of the to-do list? You've got this initial to-do list. You look at the list. You think it would be amazing if I could clear the list. And it's impossible to fucking clear it, right? So what does that do? It creates more stress. It creates more anxiety. It creates more tension. It gives you less time. People are sick of that never-ending to-do list. So we're going to move past that today. What we're going to be going over today is a couple of different methods and techniques where we can manage our tasks, we can remove the to-do lists, and we can start to actually realize some of the goals in which we want to achieve, right? If the lists work for you, that's awesome, but it's all about whether it works for you, right? That's the key, because everybody is unique. There will be people where the lists, it keeps them in flow and it allows them to have clarity and it allows them to stay on top and it doesn't create stress. But I know that those lists, they do create a lot of stress for a lot of people. So I just want to offer up today a way of being able to enhance the list process, right? Not necessarily like completely remove it if it works for you, but just enhance it. What I want to do is I want to break this down into a few different categories, right? Now we're going to get deeper as we go. Now the first thing that I want to mention is something very, very simple. This isn't a tool. This isn't a technique. This isn't a method. It's just an observation, right? It's an observation and it's something that I've witnessed and it's something that I've felt. Now, sometimes this will be helpful and sometimes it won't, depending on what tasks you have in this moment. Without a shadow of a doubt, if you are pursuing something that you are absolutely wholeheartedly passionate about, time management and task management never becomes a problem. It's a part of who we are. It's a part of our inner makeup. It's a part of the connection between our brain, our body, our soul. That if we are pursuing something that we feel is so deeply connected to who we are and why we're here on this earth, then all of a sudden the idea of managing the tasks and managing the time in relation to trying to achieve that passion no longer becomes a problem. What we often find is when we're struggling with time management and task management, it always seems to be surrounding something that we're not really feeling that driven to do or accomplish. We may like the idea of the end result, but it tends to be something that doesn't really light a fucking fire inside of us. Because the fire is the thing that really allows our engines to burn. Right? It really gives us the fuel to move forward and drive forward and do what needs to be done. I'll give you a great example, right? When I discovered my passion for coaching, now I didn't have it initially, right? This is going to be me being very open. When I first became a coach, I didn't have that passion and that drive for it. Not like I do now. I had to find that. I had to really discover that. And I actually discovered that via learning more tools and techniques and realizing deeply how these could genuinely affect people's lives and witnessing the positive effect it has on people as an observer and feeling the positive effect of coaching techniques as a client. I had to fully throw myself into the whole world of coaching before I got to the point where I actually developed a passion for it. Once I developed a passion for coaching, I had a lot less, right? I didn't have problem past that point, managing my time and managing my tasks, if I was working towards something that was going to allow me to create the end result, be it to become a very skillful coach and be able to genuinely help and transform people's lives. So the first little observation I want to give people is not only to just try to find the thing that you're extremely passionate about, but try to instill that thing into whatever it is you're currently struggling with. Because naturally, there are also things that we need to try to do and achieve that might not be in direct alignment with this great, deep, burning passion that we've got. But there's always a way of trying to discover what element of that could you at least become passionate about, and how do you pursue the passion? Instead of pursuing the to-do list and the tasks, how do you pursue the passion of the end result, right? Now, there's a technique that I'm going to give you guys at the end of this, which will help you discover that. But that's just a very quick observation first and foremost. If you are completely passionate about what it is you're doing and you're very passionate about the end result, doing the things that are required for you to get there becomes a lot easier just because you're fully driven with that fire in your belly. However, there are some actual techniques that you can use as well to help you with this. Now, one of the techniques is called the 4 Ds, right? The 4 Ds. Now, this technique can actually be found in Stephen Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Now, if you've not read that book, read that fucking book because it is phenomenal, right? It's always one of the books that I highly recommend to anybody, not only pursuing coaching, but also just pursuing a better life, right? The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And one of these things that he talks about, one of these models that he talks about is the 4 Ds of task management or time management. I like to see it as task management because that is time management. So this is the technique, right? What I want you to do is I want you to take the list of things that you currently have to do, right? And you know what? Fuck it. Let's even add to the list. Let's do something crazy that you'll think, but that's going to actually give me less time. Let's add to the list. Let's brain dump every single thing you could possibly think that you may have to do, right? In your personal life, in your professional life, in your family life, in your relationships. Let's literally create one massive, exhaustive list of everything that you feel that you must do, right? And that may look completely overwhelming at this stage, and it probably will, but that's okay, right? That's okay. Now, this is what we do. We then create 4 different categories, okay? Now, you might want to draw this out in terms of 4 different boxes or 4 different circles or 4 different lists. You design this however you want to design this, but we're going to have 4 different categories. The first one is called do it. The second one is called decide when to do it. The third one is called delegate it. And the fourth one is called dump it. Those are the 4 categories that we're going to be working with. They are the 4 Ds. Now, under the category that says do it, I want you to write the words important and urgent, right? The do it category is important and urgent. The decide when to do it category is important but not urgent, right? Important but not urgent. The delegate it category is not important, but it is urgent, right? It's not important, but it is urgent. And the dump it category is not important and not urgent. So now you've got these 4 categories. What we want to do is we want to essentially allocate every single thing that's on your list into one of these 4 boxes. Now, the biggest mistake that everybody makes is they make the assumption that everything that they have on their to-do list, it must be important and it must be done right now. Can you relate to that overwhelming sense that the reason as to why you feel like you get nothing done and the reason as to why you feel like you're stressed a lot of the time is because everything that you have to do must be done and it must be done now, right? And that is the worst fucking mindset to have when you approach this stuff because it's overwhelming, it's impossible, it will take your breath away, it will fill you with stress, and you know what? It's not even true. That's the worst thing. We convince ourselves that's true and it's not true. So because of this, everyone assumes that, and of course I'm using everyone as a bit of a generalization there, but let's just go with the generalizations because it helps me emphasize my point. Everyone assumes that everything that they have on their list must go into box number 1, right? I must do it. They think they have to do everything on their list. And I was like this for years because everything is really important. It must be done. But we need to be really strict with this process, really strict. Now, what we need to do is we first and foremost need to figure out what needs to go into box number 4. What needs to be dumped, right? What needs to be dumped? Now, these are things that it's not urgent and it's not important. These are filler tasks. These are tasks that we look at and we say, you know what, if I'm being completely honest with myself, that doesn't really need to be done, right? It may be a nice to have, and it may be something that's been hanging over me for a long time, and it may be something that's sat on my list for a long time. But you know what? It's been on that list so long, and I've not done it for so long, and the fucking world hasn't ended. Maybe I just don't need to do it at all. These are also those procrastination moments, you know. These are checking the email 10 times a day. This is like watching that fucking reality TV show you've been dying to see. These are things that are just like, no, just dump it, get rid of it. It's not good. Even if these are things that seem important at the time and they seem urgent at the time, we have to be so strict with ourselves. You know what? The aim of this is to actually put as many things from our to-do list into that box as possible. That is the fucking gold standard, really. That is what we're really aiming for. And that at first might seem crazy. And it might seem as though like a bit uncomfortable because all these things that are on my to-do list are clearly very important. You be really strict with yourself and you be very kind to yourself by saying, actually, I don't need the stress and I don't need this massive list. I'm going to put as many things as I can into that category of dump it, and I'm never going to even think about it again. This is a big way of alleviating your time, is to just be strict with it and say, actually, if I really think about it, it's not important, it's not urgent, boom, I'm going to get rid of it. Then there are those tasks that seem important, but they're not. And the reason they seem important is because other people around you feel as though the tasks are very urgent. This box number 3, this is all about tasks that people put on you, right? A lot of the time people are putting tasks upon our shoulders and letting us know that these tasks are really important, right? You've got to turn up to this meeting. You've got to go there. You've got to check that email. Make sure you respond to this. And you know what? We want to fucking give those tasks back. Don't be afraid to give tasks back or delegate them to someone else. This is what box number 3 is about. It's all about delegation. Now, if we can also delegate as many of these tasks on our list as possible, then once again, we have more time and we have more freedom. So think about this. Imagine for a moment that massive list that you've got, that massive to-do list. Imagine for a moment that you're able to actually dump most of it and delegate the rest, right? How fucking awesome would that be? And I promise you now, getting close to that is not that far away from reality. There will always be certain things we have to do, which is what the next 2 boxes are about, which I'm going to talk about. But you know what? If we can dump a lot of it and we can delegate a lot of it, you have just relieved a ton of stress and time from yourself. Because we fall into the trap of thinking that everything needs to be done right now, and I need to be the one to do it. No way. Let's remove that mindset right here, right now. I'll tell you what, right now, within my own business, if I'm going to do something, there has to be a really good reason as to why I'm doing it. Because my first thing is, right, well, does it actually need to be done, right? Is it actually vital? Because if it's a little filler task or it's something that actually is not going to affect us or benefit us in any way, I'm not even going to think about it. I'm going to dump it straight away. But if it is something that I would like to get done, but I don't want to be the one doing it, I'm going to give it to someone else. You guys are completely unique. You can only judge this from your own lists. And you know what? I can guarantee right now, there will be lots of people listening to this and going, no, that doesn't apply to me. It doesn't apply to me. Everything on my list, I can't dump any of it and I have to do it myself. And you know what? Of course, I understand the mindset. I was there once. But in the nature of alleviating the stress and the pain and giving yourself more time, do absolutely everything you can to try to break past that. Because if everything remains on your list and you are the one that has to do it and it all has to happen right now, then forever you will live in that turmoil of stress. What can you dump? What can you delegate, right? 2 powerful tools. Dumping it, delegating it. Now, what's left? Now, these are tasks that are actually genuinely important, right? They are genuinely important. Hopefully at this stage, we've actually cut your list down in a massive way. That's the aim, right? If we could at least cut your list down by half by dumping most of it and delegating the rest, then fantastic. Now, some of those tasks will immediately need attention, right? If you look at them and you can honestly say, that does actually need to happen right now. I actually need to do that. And I do need to do it immediately because we're on a very, very tight time constraint with that one. That goes into the box number 1, the do it box. Okay. Now the do it box is literally like, these are the pressing priorities. These are the things that you need to do. They're very important and you need to do them right now. Now, hopefully that box is actually as small as possible. The biggest mistake that a lot of people experience is, and before they go through a technique like this, their entire fucking list is in that box. And that's just impossible to deal with. So hopefully now at this point, there's actually not that many tasks in that box. Hopefully none, right? But if maximum 1 or 2, and we can give them immediate attention and they no longer have been lost amongst all of the bullshit dump it and delegate it tasks. Now, what's left are things that are important and you do need to do them, but they have not yet become stressful due to a time constraint. You don't need to do them right now. And what you do is you put them in the decide when to do it box, box number 2. But this is the trick. This is the key, right? This is the secret sauce. Any tasks that are in box number 1, which is the do it box, get them done right fucking now. No questions asked. Get them done. And it's a lot less pressure because now those in the immediacy are the only tasks you need to worry about. So there's not that many. But here's the real trick. Once your tasks in box number 1 have been completed, even though your tasks in box number 2 don't need to be completed yet, do them now. That's the trick, to do them now. Because you do them before they become a problem. You do them before they become stressful. Now, these 4 boxes, allow these 4 boxes to now become your new to-do list. Don't, from this point forward, ever keep a list. Instead, keep the 4 boxes. And every time you get something that normally you would put on your to-do list, you look at those 4 boxes and you say, honestly, strictly, first and foremost, can I dump this? Do I really need to do it? If it needs to be done, you move to box number 3. Can I delegate this? Is there a way that I don't need to be the one who does this task? Can I give it to someone else to do? Right? And their reasoning for doing it is down to you. Whether or not you pay them, whether or not you do them a favor, whether or not you exchange some value, whether or not they should be fucking doing it in the first place, you give it away, right? Then, if it isn't either of those, you say, right, box number 2, I'm going to decide when this needs to be done. Not falling into the trap of assuming that everything needs to be done right now. Okay? So that's the 4 Ds. Another thing that I want to talk to you about is an idea that really resonated with me when I first learned this in a big, big, big way. And it's the idea of how many steps it takes to achieve a certain goal. Now, I thought this was phenomenal when I first learned this. And I heard this story about this guy. And I can't remember exactly what he was struggling with. I can't remember what it was now. I think it was public speaking. And there was person number 1 and there was person number 2. And person number 1 found public speaking very, very, very difficult. And person number 2 found public speaking really easy, just like totally effortless, no stress, no worry, just like a breeze, right? Like they were born to do it. And so there was this bit of research that went into this, and I can't remember who it was. It was one of the top coaches I was listening to, and he was talking about how he did this. And basically, long story short, because it was a bit of a big research piece, but long story short, person number 1 who really struggled with public speaking, when asked, what do you need to do in order to speak in public or on a stage? Person number one was offering up so many steps. It was just unbelievable. They were like, well, I need to get up in the morning, and then I need to stretch, and then I need to make sure I'm wearing the perfect tie, and then when I have my breakfast, I need to make sure that it's this particular type of breakfast. Then I need to do my affirmations. Then I need to make sure I get the car to the venue. Then when I get into the venue, I need to first of all walk up on stage and feel out the stage. And then when I'm up on stage, I need to make sure that the acoustics are okay so everybody can hear me. And then after that's been done, then I've got to make sure I go into my dressing room. My dressing room is all laid out perfectly. And then when I'm in my dressing room, I need to make sure that like my microphone is on properly and it's stuck to my cheek and it's not going to fall off. And then what I need to do is I need to make sure I like do some press ups to get my energy up. And then when I'm out on stage, the first thing I need to remember is to try to tell a funny joke. And the second thing I need to try to remember is to engage with the audience and look them in the eye. And then the third thing I need to remember is I need to remember exactly like where my speech begins. And then the fourth thing I need to remember is I need to remember to have a break to sip some water. And then the fifth thing, and then it's just like, what the fuck? Like, just no wonder you're finding it really difficult, because when we find something difficult and overwhelming, we add so many steps. Person number two, who found public speaking the easiest thing in the world, when asked, well, what do you do in order to be such a good public speaker? They had one step. They were like, well, I just get up on stage and talk. That's what I do. I get up on stage and I talk, right? Now, person number two, they're probably doing a lot of the same things that person number one is doing, but they're not seeing it as all of these little individual minute tasks. They're seeing it as one overall objective: to speak on stage. All I need to do is get up on stage and talk. That's the only thing I need to worry about. If I do that, then I'm public speaking. But if we find something very difficult, we find a way of giving ourselves loads and loads and loads and loads and loads of steps. So this is what leads me on to our final technique, right? How many steps are you giving yourself to try to achieve one overall objective? Because I can guarantee if time management is stressing you out, task management is stressing you out, you're giving yourself too many steps. Now, let me ask you this. Think of something that you are very, 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 very good at. Think of something that comes completely effortless to you, and you would actually consider yourself to be one of the best people ever to do this one thing, right? It might be a skill, it might be a profession, it might be an internal resource like experiencing confidence or forgiveness or being a great listener or being a great mum or anything, right? What is something that you're very good at? And then ask yourself, how many steps do you really give yourself to be good at that one thing? And I can guarantee it's not a lot, right? I bet you any money it's not a lot. Those people that are extremely good at playing an instrument, they just see one or two things that you need to do. Those people that really struggle with it will see every single little thing they need to do with every finger and every note, right? Just as an example. Think of something that you're very good at and ask yourself honestly, how many steps do I honestly create, right, to do this? Now think of something that you are currently struggling with, that you feel takes up all of your time. It's really fucking impossible. It's like it's zapping all of your energy. It's stressing you out. And I can guarantee what you're doing is you're creating way more steps than what is necessary. Way more. So what I want to talk about finally is how we focus on an overall objective by chunking our tasks into certain categories, right? So what I want you to do is, this is like a separate task from the 4 Ds of time management. Do this one separately just to see out of the two which one works better for you. So what I want you to do is I want you to take your entire list, right? Your entire list of your entire to-do list. And this time I want you to put them into categories of overall objective. So I'll give you an example, right? Let's imagine that on your list, you've got I've got to bath the kids. I've got to make their dinner. I've got to read to them. I've got to make sure all of their clothes are washed. I've got to make sure the football kits are washed. I've got to make sure that their homework is done. I've got to make sure that their bedroom's been decorated. And there's all these things you've got to do, right? All of those things could be put into one category, which is being a good parent, right? Just as an example. Now, all of a sudden, you've got all these tasks, you've got all this list of things, and what you've done is you've actually merged them all together and you've just put them into one box because that box has one overall objective. They all have the same objective. And that objective may be something like being a good parent, right? For instance, the reason why this now is really good as we're starting to move through this is what you find is instead of 100 tasks on your to-do list, you might actually have 4 overall objectives or 3 or 2, whatever, right? Now, 3 or 4 overall objectives is way easier to process in your head than 100 tasks, right? It's much easier to process that than 100 tasks. Then what you want to do is you want to create an emotionally driven reason as to why it's important that you achieve that overall objective. For instance, the overall objective and category might be being a good parent. And underneath that, you might say something like, it's very important for me to be a good parent because I want to provide my children with warmth, comfort, and a safe environment for them to grow. For instance, just off the top of my head. Now what you've got is instead of this massive to-do list of tasks for you to do, you've now got a much smaller list of overall objectives, and you've got an emotionally driven reason as to why you want to achieve the objective. So not only is it more manageable to deal with inside of your own head, but actually you're a lot more driven also to get it done. Then what you want to do is you want to give yourself a very creative name, right, for your character when it comes to that one overall objective. So the being a good parent one might be super mum or super dad, right? And what I want you to do is I want you to pick a name that resonates with you, something creative, something emotional, something that when you look at it, you feel like I can step into that role. I can be that version of myself. I can be that person. I can be super dad. I can be super mum. And my overall objective is to provide a warm and loving, safe environment for my kids to grow up in. All of a sudden now, we have a character that we can step into. We have one overall objective instead of a big fucking boring to-do list of tasks that need to be done. Then the final step in all of this is you look at the tasks that are within that category and you rank them from most important to least important, and you only focus on the top 3 that are most important. Now, even though you might be thinking, yeah, but the rest of it needs to be done, the rest of it will be a lot easier to do once you've created the empowering character for yourself, you have the overall objective and an emotionally driven reason as to why you want to achieve the objective, and you've ticked off the 3 most important things within that category. Once you do that, the rest of them, like dominoes, will just go and will all fall. The rest of them will fall, right? But what you've done is you've actually made a serious amount of progress towards doing the thing that you actually should be doing and the stuff that actually yields results. Because now what you're doing is you're incorporating the 80-20 rule, right? Now we know that actually 80% of the progress that we make and 80% of the growth that we achieve comes from 20% of our efforts. But what we want to be doing is we want to be focusing only on that 20% that really is highly, highly, highly valuable in order to achieve the 80% of the results. Because what people do a lot of the time is they focus on the 80% of the bullshit tasks, that actually only yield 20% of our results. But we want to be focusing on that very select few 20% of the tasks that's actually going to yield 80% of the overall result.